So I'll talk a little bit about cloud, unified communication, mobility. I think those are the three main themes. So I'm the CTO for cloud within Mitel. So we got the business units focus on cloud and cloud services and cloud products. So I'm running that side. So just a quick update on Mitel. Probably you guys know much more about Mitel than I do because I came in just 2 years ago from an acquisition, building cloud communication and collaboration platforms. And Mitel's been through quite a big transformation the last years, growing from, I would say, more of a regional English-speaking country market presence into global presence. So today we're about 4,500 employees. We're number one in EMEA on enterprise communications. This year we did an acquisition also into the mobile space. So we're not only doing enterprise services, we're also building infrastructure for mobile carriers. And why would you do that? I mean, it's about unified communications, I would say, at the end of the day. Historically, enterprise networking been one silo, carrier and mobile been another silo. But what's happening now is that 10 years later, you get IP all end-to-end in the mobile world with LTE, with voice over LTE, which is more or less VoIP services. And what we're seeing is that having IP in both of those worlds, there's no reason to have those as separate islands or silos. They will converge, as well as services. So your mobile phone will become more or less integrated into your enterprise network over time. And that's where we're leading the development. Also from a cloud perspective, we were quite early. We're number one with the fastest growing cloud vendor. So this is the recent Q3 numbers. So we have more than 1.7 million cloud deployed users out there. Grown by about 150,000 users last quarter. So what make this actually grow this fast and happen now? It is this convergence of the different demand. First of all, we have actually what we call best path to the cloud. So there are multiple cloud deployment options, all from buying it as a utility, from a service provider, down to install it in your own data center and offer your own private cloud-based services. But there is also a need and a demand for the users here to get ubiquitous service access so you can actually work from anywhere, from any kind of device. And the mobility dimension, as I mentioned. It doesn't really matter for me being here in London or if I'm in the office in Stockholm or sitting at home. I can be as productive as I would be in the office traditionally, thanks to the technology. And you also see a lot of the consumerization of those services. End users will be much more demanding. You heard that in the previous presentations as well. So a little bit of a Nordic perspective on this. What we've seen, actually what we did back in 2006, we started to build the cloud platform from where I'm coming from, Telepo. So I was one of the founders of that company that got acquired 2 years ago by Mitel. We started building a platform to be sold, multi-tenant platform to be sold to service providers. I think actually the word cloud was not a buzzword or not even invented by that time. But we started with a few service providers. Actually, our first customer, they were a reseller of SIM cards to enterprises. But they saw they wanted to climb in the value chain because they didn't want to build a business on something that was so built around arbitrage and kickbacks on selling the SIM cards. So they started to set up our product in the data center and start to sell this in conjunction with the SIM cards to the users. At that time, I would say, average size of the companies adopting to the technology was maybe 10 users. Nowadays, those guys are selling to average size of companies being 300 users. But we also see from other channels, even 12,000 user companies being served from the same cloud platform. So the maturity to buy from the clouds is actually increasing up into the larger segment. So from 5 years ago, being more or less unknown, you got the market acceptance and the trust in technology, so even the very big and large organizations start to buy this, and you see the shift. And talking a little bit about which fit where. Public cloud, yeah, it's easier. It has the most advantages for the smaller side because they don't want to do anything about the infrastructure, host and operate it themselves. While in the larger scale, private cloud is probably better suited if you want to do more special purpose integrations, if you want to do more, have control over your data and things like that. So that is sort of how you would see it. It's not really segmented on size. It's more level of customization if you go for public or private cloud. So why is this so exciting? First of all, it's a very dynamic market. What we believe is right today is probably not the same thing a year from today. And it's very competitive. I would say the main competitors that we face having a quite frequent release updates. So you never know what will come a quarter from today. And it's also, as I said, very fast moving. So it's a matter of staying up to date with this, and also you as a partner and channels need to adopt to this. So my experience is about unified communications, coming also from the Nordic side and seeing this being deployed as cloud services and growing from, I would say, a zero market into a market-leading position. So 3 out of the 4 mobile carriers offer this on top of their normal subscriptions. But we also have, I would say, a large network of alternative service providers selling this, similar like Britannic selling cloud services. And they can differentiate by offering other services around the platform. But looking back how those guys have been selling this and building this market, it's not about UC. They don't use the word UC. What they're doing is actually focusing on the values. And the main problem statement's been, people had a PBX, that PBX become old, they need to replace it. And what do you want then? Yeah, primarily purpose of that platform to be replaced is communication. They come from the voice side, but then they start to see what are the other values you get in conjunction to that voice. So actually the end users, the customers out there, don't know about UC. That's an acronym that probably we in this room know about. But if you go to the typical, at least small to medium-sized company, they don't really care about UC. They care about what problems we solve for them. And there is a lot of value. So the question is, how do you capture that value and how can you actually communicate the value out to the customers? That's sort of the key differentiator. If I compare our very successful partners with the less successful partners, the big difference is those that can actually communicate this value. There is actually quite a good correlation here. Those companies very strong at sales side and those strong at technology. Guess who's selling best? The sales guys. Even if you have the best technology, you don't and can't express the value, you will fail. And also, what we see is it's quite a lot of transition in buying behaviors, going from traditional desk phones on the desk to more user-centric communication. I, as a user, have a phone number. I have multiple devices for my communication. So this phone number could point to a mobile phone, it could point to my desk phone, so phone. Also from space, sitting in office to work from anywhere. And also going from just voice into multiple channels of communication. Voice, video, screen share, collaboration. So I would say the biggest values of UC as an end user, from an end user perspective, is you can work from anywhere. And you can stay in touch with your colleagues from anywhere. And it facilitates teamwork. Because a lot of activities out there require more than just a 2-person call. You need to bring a group of people together. You need to work around a certain topic, share files, share documents, annotate those documents. It's not only real time, it's also collaboration over time. So you need to have good tools where you can upload a document, comment it, annotate it, and so on. Also, when you need to get hold of someone, you want to find that person. You want to see the availability, see the presence information for the user, so you can see if the person is out on holiday or busy in a meeting and things like that. So the presence information, I would say, is one of the key elements for unified communication. And looking at it from the small enterprise perspective, this actually open up for new opportunities. In the past, a lot of these tools existed, but they were restricted for the larger enterprises because it required a lot of complex infrastructure to be set up. But from a cloud perspective, you can offer all this pre-packaged, pre-built, and you can make it at scale. What making the small enterprise unique as well is that it's not as strict in terms if you talk about contact center, for example. In a larger context, you have specialized, special purpose contact center agents. But in the small world, it's probably receptionist, the IT guy, and a few other people that sort of share responsibilities. But still, towards the outside, you want to appear as if you have this more divisional structure. But one finding, for example, on our call center functionality for the small enterprise is that if you have that set up and kick out the agents if they don't answer, you will end up with no one logged in, because those people not having that as a professional role will forget to log in again. So that kind of config doesn't work. Instead, you need to have some system with some smarter hunting logic. Okay, if this person is not answering, disable it for a certain period of time and try someone else, but then after 15 minutes, 20 minutes, make that user active again into the queue. Same with the switchboard attendant service. Yeah, you may have an office receptionist being the main attendant, but when that person is out for lunch, it will hunt down to someone else, and someone else can sit on their PC, act as a switchboard attendant. So you still have multiple users, but they are not full-time allocated for that task. Also, from a tool perspective, if you're a smaller company, most of your collaboration is likely to happen with externals, because it's a small company and the people you work day to day with are in the same premise or same office. But you collaborate with people from the outside world. So that's also put the requirement on the infrastructure that it should be easy to invite these external participants into this communication and collaboration. Share your availability, share your documents with those guys. And mobility is even more important, because you're not as static in where you make your work from. So from a mobility perspective and looking at that, what impact did that have on the unified communication? Actually, with the technology evolution and the change of the mobile networks, change of the mobile services, the mobile phone will become a first-class citizen for business users. Your mobile phone gets as integrated into your UC services as a desk phone were, or your PC will be, or have been. And not only for communication, you can also do first-hand mobile collaboration, document sharing, annotate documents, upload files also from the mobile device, and provide, I would say, small enterprise contact center, call center functionality, log in, log out agents, being a supervisor from the mobile device. And at the end of the day, even the smaller companies can stay more competitive because you're more available. You can actually serve your customers and be part of the internal communication wherever you are. And that is a big change, I would say, huge change from 10 years ago. Just myself and personally, if I were out of the office for a week, things stopped. Now I'm with my phone, always available. I can do the key tasks. I can do my key communication. I could get an IM while I'm sitting here in the audience and reply to that and get that sort of problem solved, instead of someone have to wait for me to become available and return a voicemail, which I probably wouldn't return because it would have been one of the other 200 messages being left while not being available. And that's a really exciting piece of getting the mobility into the whole UC space. And from an employee expectation, it was touched upon before as well. I mean, people have other expectations on the tool. If you want to be successful, you cannot have a strict policy saying we only do Windows, or you can only have a certain model of a phone. May work for current generation, but people coming into the workforce today, they expect to be able to use an iPhone if they're an iPhone user, or an Android phone of a certain brand and model if they're an Android user. just looking at sort of the adoption of Mac within the enterprise environment, you need to make sure that that also works. And from an end user usability perspective, people are used to applications that are easy to use, intuitive to use, Facebook, Instagram, and others. So if your office communication tools are much harder to work with, people will just get frustrated and not be as productive as they would have been if you had a good usability and good user experience. So this is something that we're working very hard on now moving forward. Make sure that enterprise experience should be as good as from a consumer experience. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we have multiple paths to the cloud, and it's really you and the customer that decide which way to get there. If you're starting migrating from an on-prem equipment into a hybrid cloud where you put pieces of the infrastructure in your own data center, get other pieces of the infrastructure from a cloud environment, or to pure mobile cloud where you buy these services out of a mobile carrier environment, or go straight to the public cloud, or straight to a private cloud environment. It doesn't matter for us. All of these use cases have the same purpose depending on who you are and what your needs are, and we can serve them all. This is a term, actually one of our partners said, that they said we're working with my cloud speed, because that's what we're seeing coming back to the dynamic market and the competitiveness. The pure cloud providers that only offer a service from their own home-built platform, they actually have an advantage because they can do service upgrades and update their platforms continuously. Compare with Gmail. Who of you even notice when they upgrade their platform? They add small features at a continuous basis, and they only have one single platform to maintain, which makes that easier compared to if you have a software version that you have to send out to thousands of partners, get them trained and educated. But that's the competitive reality. Those cloud installations are evolving as fast. And we, as a software vendor, need to stay up to date with that. So what we're doing here on the cloud side is making sure that we have a continuous set of releases, at least 3 times a year, and make sure there is an upgrade path for those releases. Because if you cannot upgrade smoothly, people will not accept that fast pace. Then there will be some customers not opting in to update every quarter and will do it yearly. That will be supported as well. But it's really important that we can keep up to date and do smaller but more frequent updates on the platforms. And actually what it turned out, we've been through this journey ourselves from Telepo, where I come from, where we had a yearly release. And people were reluctant to take that yearly release because it was such a big project to update every year. When we went to the quarterly releases, actually the acceptance after some period of time, at first people were reluctant and resistant. But once we got into that cadence, it actually turned out to be much more better, because if the release is smaller, the risk is lower, and it's much easier to actually make sure that all these combinations and scenarios are tested before you do the upgrade. But the biggest advantage is also we can get the feedback earlier. If you're not right, and it's always hard to be right first time you do something new, we can get the feedback and fix it a quarter later. So looking into agile development and continuous software releases, that's key. Challenge with that is you need to have an organization that can work like that. It has to change. If you're used to more of a waterfall development with handoffs between departments and centralized functions, it doesn't fly. You have to have people sitting in cross-functional teams working together. And you need to work with your partners and channels to make sure that this works in the similar way on that side. So that's something that we're working hard on now. And then the change of expectations. As I said, it needs to be ease of use, not only from an end user perspective, but also for the people serving and maintaining the platforms. And it should just work. I mean, that's the cloud promise here. You buy a service, you pay per month, and it works and it evolves over time, and you don't have to bother with it. And it will work from anywhere on any device, and it should be fun to use. I mean, that's, I would say, the key expectations on the service today. If you have to remember stars and hashes and read the manuals to understand how things are working, don't waste your time with it. Looking a step ahead then, what's happening here, we see that desk phones and mobiles and those devices are sort of becoming a choice of the user. But what's beyond that? Actually, communication will move into the context of the application. So that's why the role of APIs and SDKs becomes even more important, because over time, you will have your communication embedded into the application. As we heard before, one day, Instagram may do telephony. But what is that telephony powered with? Probably they will not rebuild the whole communications infrastructure. They will go and pick a cloud service that offer good APIs and SDKs for them to embed into their application. So the phone of the future is probably not looking like a desk phone. It's looking like an application. And when you push of a button, it will trigger off an API call into a cloud service that will power that communication. And we already see that today, that those APIs and those SDKs is a way for the different partners to differentiate on the market. So even if 8 out of 10 provide services out of the same platform, they can still target different verticals. They can still differentiate by building their own extensions on top of the platform and provide different service. And we also heard a little bit about the IFTT kind of applications where you're interworking between different cloud services and mashups to make it easy, so you don't have to be a programmer to make, for example, if you want to trigger, make a lamp flash in the ceiling when you get an inbound call. You could actually do that with a service like that. If you have a home automation system with APIs and you have a phone system with those APIs that will send out a webhook request when you get an inbound call. And you don't have to be a programmer to do that kind of logic. That is one of the interesting things. And those APIs and those SDKs is also there to, coming from a consumer perspective, I think that's a little bit sometimes a challenge from people with a legacy in the telecom industry. If you build an API or an SDK, you have to be a PhD in telecom to understand how to use them. If you do that, then you're in the wrong track. The consumers of those APIs, those are the web developers, those are the guys that don't come from the telecom space. Because that is when you will start to see the wide adoption and the most exciting innovation around the platforms. So this was a little bit just sharing some of the reflections and what we've been seeing. And I would say this happened and started to happen in the Nordics, and it took about 5 years to grow up to that. I would say more or less every new seat being sold there is coming from the cloud, and the majority is powered by Mitel. And we see the same kind of movement happening all over Europe and the rest of the world now. So the question is then, how could you, as a partner and the channel, utilize this and build services around it? So those were the few slides and the few reflections I wanted to share with you guys. And I'll stay around a little bit, sort of approach me afterwards if you have any questions. Thank you.